The Hurricanes have inked 4 players to ELCs in the past few days that will be critical to the long-term success of the team, in my opinion. These signings can be indicative of several things, such as players that we may not see coming back with the Hurricanes next season regardless of how the playoffs turn out, as well as the potential that there is finally a solution for the Hurricanes to have an AHL affiliate again. I'll talk about those various scenarios. I'm going to talk about these 4 players that are just signed, and a little bit more discussion about who could leave after the offseason, because pretty soon the offseason will not be discussed at all on this channel. It's going to be all playoff hockey. What's up, everybody? Welcome back, all returning viewers, and if you're new here, welcome. If you end up liking this video, please hit the like button, share, subscribe. I'm trying to get to where I'm uploading more often. Also, I take donations via Buy Me a Coffee. The link will be in the description. I hope you enjoy the video. So, what we're going to talk about today is the 4 ELC signings that the Hurricanes have had over the past few days. We're going to look at their contracts, and we're also going to talk about the players themselves and what each of them could bring to the table for the Hurricanes in the short term and in the long-term future. What players could potentially be leaving as a result of some of these signings, what positions the Hurricanes appear to be insulating the depth chart at, and how all this stuff may indicate that the Hurricanes will have an AHL affiliate of some sort in place. I imagine it will be announced at the end of the AHL regular season or sometime after that. So the first one we're going to talk about here is Bradley Nadeau. After he finished up his season at the University of Maine, he signed a 3-year entry-level contract on the 7th of April. Hobey Baker finalist Jackson Blake, who I'm personally really excited about, I'm going to get into that in a little bit, signed 3 days later on the 10th of April, also to a 3-year ELC. Now, the prospect I know the least about is that of Gleb Trikazov, but he also signed an entry-level contract after finishing up his last VHL season, which is like the AHL but in Russia. And then the player that I'm the most excited about is Scott Morrow. So a little quick thing about Morrow as far as his signing goes. His degree was actually almost finished, so the Vultures were circling, so the Hurricanes expedited getting him done, and that's a really good thing. I think that this kid definitely has a bright future. He's definitely going to be someone who's on the power play. He has the potential to be in all situations, defenseman kind of like Brady Shea, but we're going to talk about him extensively here in a little bit. So far, the Hurricanes have continued their trend of only drafting forwards in the first round, as Tom Dundon said when he bought the team. I was under the impression that potentially they would trade this pick away to trade down and get more picks. When I did a video before the draft about who the Hurricanes might draft, Bradley Nadeau was one of the, I believe, 7 players that I profiled, and I actually did not expect him to fall all the way to 30th, but he did. So at the University of Maine, Bradley Nadeau played a total of 37 games where he recorded 19 goals, 27 assists for a total of 46 points, 109 shots with a shot percentage of 174, a grand total of 6 minor penalties. Of his 19 goals, 3 of them came on the power play, 1 shorthanded goal, and 4 game-winning goals. So this little snippet from Elite Prospects NHL Draft Guide, the power that Nadeau creates off his shot is not only downright terrifying to witness in person, but it is also awe-inspiring from a mechanical point of view. He's effectively stacked more nuance and deception to make it an even more dangerous threat. From his curl and drag attempts around sprawling defenders to his angle-changing release, Nadeau's arms are always separated from his body, leveraging the full force of his upper body and leveraging down on the stick. So, past Brandon is going to make a quick appearance and talk about Bradley Nadeau, even though he was pronouncing his name incorrectly. And I'm going to tell you what I thought about him then, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about him now. So the first one here is Bradley Nadeau. He's currently committed to the University of Maine. Prior to that, he was playing in the British Columbia Hockey League, where he recorded, let's see here, 113 points in 54 games. That's pretty impressive. This guy is one of those deceptive types. He'll work his way into the interior of the ice. You know, basically, he'll do things like using defensemen as a screen, taking his eyes off the net to maybe look at someone to fake a pass, and then those really unpredictable releases and being able to hit, pick his spot on the net and paint a lot of corners and everything like that. So that's a good thing. So giving it just a real basic look here, I think maybe you're looking at someone who kind of has a little bit of Bo Horvat to his game, kind of likes to set up in the high slot, like right in between the dots, and has a good finishing wrister as well along with it. he'll hold on to it for that extra second, so the defenseman tries to make an errant poke check or overcommits or anything like that, or takes advantage of somebody with a bad gap. So this could be a good pick for the Canes right here. Definitely one to watch. So, past Brandon got a few things right. Not the pronunciation of the name, but he did get a few things right in my opinion. Here's what I think of Bradley Nadeau now. Bradley Nadeau gives me a little bit of a Jason Robertson vibe in his ability to find open ice, stay parallel to someone who has possession of the puck to make himself an ideal passing option, and he likes to generate high danger chances from inside the dots and right above the circle. He's got a variety of really good shots. He's got the silent wrister. He's got a quick snapshot. He's got a pretty good slap shot. Those things will really come in handy 5-on-5 and on the power play. I see a shoot-first mentality with Bradley Nadeau, but I do not see a shoot-only mentality. From what I watched of his BCHL highlights and his games at UMaine, he definitely has that cerebral hockey IQ to decide when it's a good time to pass and when it's a good time to shoot. And everything the previous scouting reports have talked about, that deceptiveness and that release, how quickly he changes his grip on the stick and redistributes his weight to shoot. His shooting mechanics are excellent. He's going to be one of those guys that's really dangerous anywhere in the slot area and still bring a little bit of playmaking ability to boot. He's a very fast skater. He has good edge work, but by far, the best thing that he is going to bring to the table is his ability to find open ice, his ability to work into high danger areas, and the variety of ways that he can score on you. So now we're going to talk about Jackson Blake. He was drafted 13th in the 4th round, 109th overall, and the Hurricanes may have just found him a mid-draft gem here with this kid. He is described by elite prospects as a better player in tight than in open ice. Blake combines his puck handling and playmaking to great effect. In tight, he adjusts his puck positioning to hook and slit passes through pressure and dekes through defenders without entering a glide. He pre-scans before every touch, then creativity connects with teammates through defenders, leads them into open space with area passes, and works give and goes. His stats from his 2 seasons at North Dakota: in 22-23 he had 20 games played, 7 goals, 14 assists for a total of 21 points, 55 shots with a 127 shot percentage, 2 of those goals on the power play and 1 game-winning goal. And then he would take a much larger step next season. So this past season, he played twice as many games and more than doubled his totals across the board. In the 23-24 season, 40 games played, 22 goals, 38 assists, a total of 60 points, 129 total shots with a shot percentage of .171, 5 of his goals coming on the power play, and 5 of them being game winners. And that undoubtedly led to him being a Hobey Baker finalist. At the time of recording this video, it's still Thursday, so I'm looking forward to see if he wins the Hobey Baker tomorrow night. And out of the 4 players that have been signed to ELCs recently, I believe Jackson Blake is one of 2 of them that I think that could potentially make the Hurricanes next season, depending on who gets re-signed and if they continue these great upward trajectories. So, first things first about Jackson Blake, this kid is competitive. He does not like to lose, and he plays his ass off every single shift. What the scouting report says about him is pretty much dead on. He loves to work in tight. He loves to bait defenders. He loves to get them to overcommit before he makes a pass or takes a shot. His playmaking abilities are very dynamic. He can do it pretty much anywhere on the ice, but he loves to thread the needle in close, and he's really, really good at it. So in contrast to what I was just talking about with Nadeau, where Nadeau likes to find open ice, Jackson Blake prefers to operate in a phone booth. And that quick, decisive nature in his game, particularly his puck distribution, comes in handy in all 3 zones, whether it's getting out of your defensive zone, transitioning through the neutral zone, capitalizing on forcing turnovers, and making plays in the offensive zone to set up shots on net. Now, the prospect that I have not watched the closest is Gleb Trekazov. Now, I read some stuff that Canes prospects over on X. If you don't follow them, I highly recommend it. And it appeared there might have been some slight coaching issues, but honestly, I'm not really worried about that. He's young. He'll get better. The scouting report says he's got really good vision, and the way that he sees the play developing is really nice. He pre-scans before scooping a loose puck and finds his target in the slot, or he sees a cross-seam pass between the goalie and defender and executes it to perfection. So he's got some size on him. Looks like he can put up pretty decent points, particularly in the assist department. This is someone I don't think that we'll see anytime soon. This is someone who I think is going to be in the American League for a little bit while he figures out how to adapt to the North American game. And like I said, I don't know a whole lot about him, so I'm going to reserve really saying much of anything. But considering how good the Hurricanes have done with their scouting over the last few seasons, there's no reason to believe that this kid won't turn into at least a serviceable NHL depth player. And so now we're going to move on to Scott Morrow. So before I get into talking about Scott Morrow, I'm going to let Past Brandon have a crack at it and see how well he did with talking about Scott Morrow. And then I'm going to talk about him extensively, possibly more than the other three players that I just talked about combined. So as previously mentioned, I think out of all the prospects that are there, and this is I don't want to say a general consensus, but a lot of other people that are in the know believe this as well. And my personal assessment of the situation is that out of everyone who's there, Scott Morrow is who we're going to see the soonest. And he was asked if he's was anxious to make the team, and he's quoted as saying, "That's not really what I'm focused on from a day-to-day standpoint. I have a lot of things that I need to improve before I get to that point. I have a short-term kind of focus right now. I'm just trying to get better every day." So I've talked about Scott Morrow on this channel before. He's one of the prospects that I'm really excited about. Scott Morrow is definitely looking pretty good. I've been watching some of his stuff from where he's been playing at UMass and everything like that. One of the biggest reasons he wanted to go back to college for another season was to put on some more size and to get himself more, physically matured and ready for the show and everything like that. And this is a good decision for him to take his time developing, because the Hurricanes are definitely not hurting for defensemen. Right now, we actually basically have too many defensemen. So as I stated, if you watched the last video that I uploaded where I was talking to Sam Driscoll from the Caniac Report, with Scott Morrow, you do have the typical offensive defenseman and then some, but it's a distinct possibility that you have another Brady Shea. Instead of signing with the team sooner, he stayed in college, kept putting size on, kept getting stronger. While that will help in all elements of the game, that can be critical to improving the defensive side of his game. And as his strength has improved, parallel to that, his defensive game improved over that entire 3 seasons. So while we have talked about how Scott Morrow's defensive game has improved, you draft a guy like Scott Morrow to generate offense from the blue line, and that's by making really good stretch passes, holding the zone, pinching at the right time, joining the rush at the right time, finding open ice, power play, walking the blue line. He does all that pretty well, and his numbers are indicative of that. First season, 37 games played, 13 goals, 20 assists for 33 points. In the next season, 35 games, 9 goals, 22 assists for 31 points. Took a little bit of a dip. And in his last season at UMass, it looked like he became less of a shooter, more of a playmaker. 37 games played, 6 goals, 24 assists for a total of 30 points. So the production is pretty steady there, and it seems that he's leaning more and more into the playmaking side of things. And I think that at the NHL level that's going to translate even better. But as he starts getting more experience, he's going to start pulling more minutes, and I think you'll see his numbers go up across the board in terms of offensive production. And lastly, reading over Elite Prospects Draft Guide has for him, with the constant hip pocket deception, changes the pace and eyes that never reveal the intended play, he embarrasses defenders. After breaking down a defender, he continues the manipulation to drag over another defender before rolling his wrist, turning the fake shot into a pass to an open teammate. So now a little bit more in regards to Morrow, and then we're going to go on to the other 2 general topics of this video, which are how these prospects are insulating the Hurricanes' depth chart to hedge against losing some players in the offseason, which is, I would say, inevitable that we're going to lose at least 1/3 of the guys who are pending UFAs, and I think Natchez could also potentially be on the way out. Scott Morrow is one of those guys. I won't say that he can take over a game, but he can take over a rush. He can identify the perfect time to be the 3rd or the 4th guy and create odd man rushes out of thin air by making a good pass, making a good give and go, and then joining the rush at the right time, but generating enough speed to where the moment that rush is over and the play is going back the other way, he can help to mitigate or prevent transition by using his speed to get back and help out his defensive partner. Scott Morrow is one of those guys that I think has a ceiling where he could potentially be on the right of Jacob Slavin, and then your second pair could potentially be, if that's what you want to call it, a second pair, could potentially be Nikishin and Chatfield, for example. But Scott Morrow is one of those guys that would go great with someone like Jacob Slavin that would allow him to play without hesitation, but Scott Morrow does not have much hesitation to begin with. When he gets the puck, he knows what he's going to do with it in an instant. He very quickly decides if he wants to create a skating lane by using his skating ability and his puck handling ability to create time and space. He decides very quickly if he wants to make a pass, and as the scouting report said, he's very deceptive. He may make you think he's passing to the left wing and it may be going to the right wing, or he may hit somebody breaking up the middle, and next thing you know, they're on a breakaway. He's going to generate a lot of high danger chances The biggest asset that Scott Morrow is going to bring to this team is going to be his ability to distribute the puck, and he sounds like someone who can do it whether he's got all the time and the space in the world to try and make a right decision when everybody is still in the neutral zone, or that he can do it when he's got a forechecker bearing down on him and he doesn't have much time to make a decision. But it also sounds like that he's one of those guys that will have the potential to scoop it up in the defensive zone, take it 180 feet the other way, and just put it in the net himself. So as I stated, Jackson Blake, I think he could probably make the jump next season. Bradley Nadeau, I'm going to put him in the maybe, but I do think that we'll see him with the team within the next couple of seasons full-time the way that he's developing. Gleb, like I said, I don't know much about him. I'll reserve saying much of anything until I do some more research and learn some more about him. And then Scott Morrow, I think I don't want to say definitely, but it is highly likely that he makes the team next year, especially with several pending free agents who are probably going to depart. For example, if you lose a combination of Brett Pesce or Brady Shea, Scott Morrow helps to insulate the depth chart and hedge against your losses there. If Brent Burns decides to retire and Brady Shea stays, let's say Carolina manages to actually win the cup and Brady Shea decides to stay, maybe take a little bit of a discount. Brent Burns says, you know what, I got my Norris Trophy, I got my cup, he hangs it up. Maybe you work things out with Tony DeAngelo and sign him and you can put him back with Slavin. Then you can have Morrow with Shea, or you could have DeAngelo with Shea and go ahead and put Morrow with Slavin, even though I don't think that would be the best idea out of the gate for him to pull those kinds of minutes before he really gets acclimated. Nason's a UFA, Martinook is a UFA. Natchez is an RFA, and based on what Elliot Friedman said, one way or another, that's going to get resolved this season, whether he stays or not. Jake Gensel, I would absolutely love for him to stay in Raleigh the way that he has played. He has been exactly what the Hurricanes needed to make that top six lethal. The top line with him, Aho, and Jarvis is really good. It might be what puts the Hurricanes over the top in terms of what they needed with offensive production from the forwards. That being said, he's getting a payday either way. If the Hurricanes win the cup, he might walk somewhere else. So this is where having someone like Jackson Blake, in case you lose any combination of the multiple UFAs the Hurricanes have up front, Teuvo Teravainen could be gone. Felix Unger-Sorm, I didn't really talk about him because he was signed to the ELC last year, and I'm working on an individual video about him anyway. There's a lot of potential that he makes the team next year as well. So even if you do see a lot of the current pending UFAs move out, the Hurricanes have a lot of guys who can step in and supplement the core players and the veterans to still keep the team competitive. And a lot of the core players, especially ones like Aho, Svechnikov, they're in their prime where youth and experience are intersecting with each other, and they can go ahead and pass that on to these guys who are not that much younger than them. And even if the Hurricanes were to lose the vast majority of their UFAs, especially in the forward group, I think that they would be fine. I would be more worried about a mass exodus on the back end. If you do manage to get some of these signings, where are these players going to go? All these signings would indicate not only, one, they're preparing for players to leave in free agency over the summer, but two, the American Hockey League situation, the affiliate situation that the Hurricanes have had over the past season with the Chicago Wolves going independent is about to be resolved. So I have no insider information on this. This is just my personal interpretation. This is me putting two and two together. I think that they're signing all these guys because there is a solution of some sort with the American Hockey League. Now, Elliot Friedman said something on the Jeff Merrick show a few weeks ago saying that Carolina and Chicago had apparently worked things out. My personal opinion on it, I didn't want anything else to do with the Chicago Wolves, but it also appears that it is a easier option than the Hurricanes being able to purchase another AHL franchise or to have an AHL expansion team. I personally would have rather the Hurricanes purchase their own affiliate, but that is much easier said than done. There's a multitude of different scenarios here. One, what I think is the most likely, the Hurricanes have just went ahead and worked something out with the Wolves. It was not a good situation with the Hurricanes to have the pipeline held up like that. You had capable American Hockey League players that were playing in the ECHL, guys overseas that would have benefited from probably being able to come over and get some games in North America when their seasons in Finland was over, like Noel Gunler. Do acquire an AHL franchise and decide to locate it nearby, there are several options. Some people have mentioned the Fayetteville Marksmen. I grew up in Fayetteville. I personally don't think that that would work for an AHL team. I could be wrong, though, because out of everything that has been in Fayetteville, baseball teams, NBA G League teams, arena football teams, which I love arena football. I'm going to talk about that one day, how much I love arena football. The only thing that has stayed there for as long as it has is the hockey team. The Fayetteville Fire Ants and the Fayetteville Marksmen, which are the same franchise, just it was rebranded when Mr. Chuck Norris, yes, that is his legal name, bought the team, has been there for 20 years. And there was a Central Hockey League team before that went defunct for reasons that were not attendance related, called the Fayetteville Force. Now, the ticket prices would go up if an American Hockey League team got put there, not to the point where I think it would deter people from going, because SPHL games, which is the league the Marksmen play in, are not too expensive to go to. I saw very little of a ticket change when I was stationed in Norfolk, and the Admirals went from being an AHL team to an ECHL team. Greensboro, I've heard that for an option. I think that would be really cool, especially considering that's where the Hurricanes first started at. My big personal preference would be to either put a team actually in Wake County somewhere, because you don't need a really big facility for an American Hockey League team. You could potentially get a schedule where there's a lot of times where while the Hurricanes are out of town or while they have an off day, people in the Wake County area might want to go see the minor league team play, and then they can see all the Hurricanes prospects as they're coming up. If they could do it, I think the Norfolk Admirals would be a great option, because it was an American Hockey League team before. There's definitely a market for it. The Hurricanes had a full ECHL agreement with them last season and had a partial one this season that they shared with the Winnipeg Jets and the Manitoba Moose. So that's going to be all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you feel so inclined, please donate to my Buy Me a Coffee. The link will be in the description. Thank you very much. Y'all take care. I will see you next time.